Hey, what's going on, beautiful dogs? It's Tracy, and today I'm going to be doing a modern mock deck tech for Bloomless Titan. Now, before we get into this video, I do want to say a couple of things about this. So, if you're someone who's new to my channel or new to my deck techs, the way I do these are mock deck techs. I do not play with these decks. I make them for the purpose of making a video on them because I think deck techs are super fun. Disclaimer number 2, I do crazy things. I am not someone who net decks. I am not someone who says, hey, this deck was really good, you should play it too. Yeah, no, I don't do that. I do weird things. Third thing is, one thing I'll say about this deck is this deck to me is such a, like, you really just kind of have to see how the combo of things work, because when Summer Bloom was, allowed basically in this deck, the deck lists maintained, I would say, consistency. You really didn't see that much changes in them, but since the removal of Summer Bloom, people had to get really creative, I would say, with what they're going to be doing. And if you look at Bloomless deck Titan lists, you will see a variety of things that people are doing. There's some people who, are loyal to creatures. There's some people who like their instants and sorceries. There's some people who like the card Lotus Bloom, which we'll talk about. And I just want to say that I did this to, like, my judgment. Like, if I were to build this deck, I would do something like this, but I'm just going to say that there's probably just straight up changes that I know I would just make in this deck. Like, there are some things that just realistically could not work in this. And with that, one thing I'm going to say is I'm actually going to be filming, going along with this video, I'm going to be doing a deck on how to pilot Bloom Titan, because I feel like a lot of people don't actually understand how to pilot this deck, and I know that it's totally a learning process. So I was thinking of doing a deck tech on that, and like with that, sorry, not a deck tech, but like a video on that. I thought that would be really helpful. Let me know if you guys want a video that's like an alternative to Summer Bloom cards. Like, I think I may do that as well if you guys are interested in it, because like I said, I'm talking about what is that card called, Lotus Bloom, but like there are other cards you could substitute for that, and I think it'd be really interesting to see what people have and like what people like. So I may do that video if you guys are interested and if you want to see that. This is just my take on it though, so let's get into the video. The first area I would say I really want to talk about are lands. Lands are extraordinarily important in Bloomless Titan, and you have to be really careful about which ones you're running and how many of them you're running and all that sort of stuff, because you want to make sure you're getting, sufficient colors and all that sort of stuff. So you have first, I'm doing 27, I should say, in my list. You see some people do 26, some people do 28. When I did mine, I want to say I ran 26, but I also did a different version of Bloom Titan. I did not do Hive Mind, I did Tooth and Nail, which, guys, remember that I did, because that deck was sweet, and I had a ton of fun with that deck. But I decided on 27 for this build. Now that totally could depend. If I were to actually build and play this deck, that number would just probably change around, and I mess around with a couple of lands. But the first land is Boros Garrison. This is one of the Ravnica bounce lands. This synergizes with Amulet of Vigor. And it's a very, very important land, having those Ravnica bounce lands and having this color combination specifically, because you have a couple of cards that need the red-white color combination. So this card is good, and there's some cards in here that have white. However, something I will say with this is just keep in mind, if you're someone who's like, we're gonna run 4 Boros Garrisons, you want to make sure you have green in your bounce lands, because the majority of your deck and the really important spells that you're casting are green. I just threw in 2, and I actually had 2 of my Boros Garrison in there in my old list when I ran that in like 2015, yeah. I ran those, so that's that. Cavern of Souls. You will see some people who may not choose to run this card, or think, oh, why do I need that card? It's one land and I'm only running one of it and it's like $60, and I totally get it. But honestly, Cavern of Souls is so worth it, guys. It is such a great land. It's so good against anti-blue decks, and if you're someone where that's really big in your meta, I would really, and especially if you're going to play a deck like this competitively, I would really invest in a Cavern of Souls. It's definitely a really good land to have on hand. So just works super well with your Primeval Titan. And another thing that's really great with Cavern of Souls is you're going to be doing a lot of like bouncing lands, so bouncing your Cavern of Souls is really good when you already have a Primeval Titan and you need to name something else, because there are different creature types in here, so it's just really incredible. So that's that. 2 basic forests. There's nothing really to say that much about it. You see some people run one. I'm a huge basic lover, and you can't really go wrong. In my opinion, doing 2 forests makes the most sense because, like I said, your most important spells that you're casting in this deck are green. Very important. 4 of Gemstone Mine. Gemstone Mine is one of the most important land. All these lands are so important, but like Gemstone Mine is incredible because if you have to remove a mining counter from it to add 1 mana of any color to your pool, and then when you lose the 3 counters, you sack it. But like honestly, that's probably not going to happen because you're probably just going to bounce it before then, or you should bounce it before then. It's really sweet because you can just tap this for any amount of mana. Card is incredible. Definitely a 4 of. There's no questions. So important in this deck. The next land is Ghost Quarter, and I find land destruction really important, and it's definitely something I always like to have on hand. Some people can totally put this in their sideboard to just have as kind of like a substitute, but I like running in the main board. I'm a huge fan of this card. More of those Ravnica bounce lands. We have 2 of Gruul Turf. Very important to have this card on hand because it's got the green mana. 1 of Colony Garden. You'll see this in basically all the Bloom Titan lists. Really, really good, especially to bounce this if you need defense. Keep in mind as well with Colony Garden about why it's so important in now. Like it was still important before because you're going a lot slower. You were going so much quicker with Summer Bloom. Now this deck has totally slowed down. So with that being said, Colony Garden is massively important because you want to make sure you're getting those creatures so they can block. And you don't really have a lot of answers in this deck. You're so concerned about what you're doing in this type of deck that your opponent, what they're doing, is not really that important. So Colony Garden is just really great to be on the defense. 1 of Mana Confluence. I don't think I've seen this in other lists that as often. It was definitely a thing that was in the older Bloom Titan lists. However, I really love this card. Yes, you pay life, but like you don't take damage from anything else. So having a 1 of Mana Confluence to me isn't really a big deal. And also I look at it where if I'm getting the opportunity to cast like a prime time on turn 5 or something like that, paying 1 mana to cast it is really not a big deal. So I'm a huge fan. I would definitely recommend Mana Confluence in this build. Radiant Fountain is another one, really, really good, really important as well with those bounce lands so that you can bounce this, gain more life if you need to. Yeah, I would just definitely recommend Radiant Fountain, really great land. 2 of Selesnya Sanctuary, very basic. This one's really important because I do have a white spell in here, and this is also really good with the 2 lands that you need white for, so this is a really great card. 4 of Simic Growth Chamber. This is the red. This is the blue-green bounce land, very important. And the reason why you're running so much of this card is because you have this other land, which we're going to talk about in a little bit, Teleria West, which you need blue mana for. So Simic Growth Chamber is incredibly important. If you're running Teleria West, you need like 4 of this card. This is like, the one I would really recommend. And you'll see some people, they run like Golgari Rot Farm, which is the black-green one, and I don't run that in this list. I run like other ones instead, but you need Simic Growth Chamber. It's very important, especially if you're running Hive Minds in your sideboard, which I would totally recommend. And also Pact of Negation as well. You need blue mana for. Okay, Slayer Stronghold. This is a default card. Absolutely 1200% needs to be in the deck. So it's really fantastic. It adds a colorless to your pool, and then target creature gains +2/+7, gains vigilance and haste until end of turn. The really important thing is that you can give your Primeval Titan haste with this, and you're giving it that little bit of buff and vigilance, which is really useful. So card is so important. There's that red-white for your Boros Garrison, and as well as that white for that Selesnya Sanctuary. Very important. And you could always get your red mana for something else if you, say, didn't have Boros Garrison, for example. Okay, and then the other really important land in this deck is Sunhome, Fortress of the Legion. It adds a colorless to your pool. For 4 mana, you tap it. Target creature gains double strike until end of turn. This is how you just straight up kill people with Primeval Titan. Also, something I would keep in mind is a lot of times if you're playing against someone, they're going to be fetching. So say like you can only swing for like... you only swing for 12, which is, still more than half their life. Say you realistically only swing for 12 with your Primeval Titan, like you don't have Slayer Stronghold or whatever. Swinging for 12 is really good, and your opponent's definitely fetching and chalking. So, those couple of points of damage, you could always just swing at them with your Primeval Titan next turn, or maybe they've already knocked themselves down with their life total. So, just a quick note. Okay, I mentioned earlier Teleria West. Card is important. I'm running 3 in here. Oh, and Slayer Stronghold, Sunhome, 1 of each. Decks in the down bar below. I forgot to mention that. Teleria West. Okay, this card is incredible for so many reasons. You need this card in your deck. I'm running 3. You'll see some that run 2, some that run... I wouldn't ever really want to run on this card. I would definitely run at least 2. But it comes into play tapped, and then it has a blue to your pool. But it's got this really sweet transmute ability. Now, what's really important about this is you can get a land with it. So if you're in desperate need of, like, I need that Slayer Stronghold because I need haste, you can get it with that. Card is incredible. This is why I run Simic Growth Chamber, so you can get that blue mana. Very, very important card. I'm really happy that I bumped this number up to 3. In my oldest, I only ran 2, but I know a lot of people bounce between 2 and 3. You need this card. It's incredible. Oh, and also, I'm sorry. Your Teleria West gets so many more things than what I just told you about. And so it gets you lands, you Lotus Bloom in this version, which is one reason why I really like it. It gets you your pacts. It gets you your Summoner's Pact and or your Pact of Negation. So highly, highly important. Totally a must need in this deck. And the last land is Vesuva. Vesuva is such an important addition to this deck. Yes, it does require you to have something else, but one thing I will note is it does say choose a land in play. So say you're stuck in a situation and it sucks and your opponent has like a basic land or something and you're like, I have nothing going on, I have all these, you know, non-basics or whatever. Vesuva is really good if you know, for all that. And what's really great about Vesuva is with your Ravnica bounce lands, you can realistically have your bounce land bounce Vesuva to enter as a copy of something else that you need, which is awesome. So Vesuva, very, very incredible land, definitely something that's important. That's it for lands. Like I said, you're going to see variations. You're going to see people who do different things. Like I said, honestly, if you were playing Bloom Titan like a couple years ago before Bloom was banned, like you will see so many rigid lists. You don't see that anymore with this deck because Bloom was banned and you see people who are running all these different options. So let's get into the rest of decks. So those are 27 lands. Yeah, that's it. Creatures, running 10. Now again, you will see variations. I'm running 3 Azusa, Lost But Seeking. Azusa is really, really important in this deck because she's allowing you to play 2 additional lands. This is every time you can play even 1 additional land per turn, it helps so much. Like this deck, the thing about this deck, especially with the change, is it's not about, I'm gonna kill you in really early stages of the game. Like, you can. I mean, I'm sure, like, listen, you get the perfect hand, it happens. But you're not killing people on turn 2 in this deck. It's just not happening. But really, getting the opportunity to, honestly, even if your opponent kills Azusa next turn, getting those 2 additional lands in is so important. Especially if it's gonna be, you know, building up, you know, you're building up your support basically, you know, and it's really good so you can get out those you know, if you do have your combo in terms of you do have a bounce land and you do have amulet, you know, you can combo with the Azusa and that's really fantastic. She's a very fragile creature. She's a glass cannon. She's gonna get killed, she's gonna get bolted. It's gonna happen. That's why a lot of people think, you know, with this deck changing, it's definitely weaker in some ways, and I will 100% agree it is. But Azusa, super important. I know she's got a huge price tag over her head. Trust me, she's worth it. You need her. Okay, so I figured, you know, I really wanted to throw in some big dudes because yes, Primetime's a big dude, but I figured, yeah, let's throw in more big dudes. Dragon Lord Jamoka. I love this card. I feel like I don't spend that much time talking about Dragon Lord Jamoka as much as I should because this card's sweet. It's 6 mana for a 5/7. It can't be countered. Already right there, it's fantastic. It's got flying lifelink and your opponents can't cast spells during your turn. Blue players hate this card because it is so damn hard to remove. They have to remove it on their turn, which we hate. We hate removing things on our turns. We want to remove it on your turn, you know what I mean? So, very, very important card. You can totally throw this in the sideboard. I know Hornet Queen's another card that is floating around a lot of people's lists, but I'm a huge Dragon Lord Jamoka fan. Yeah. Okay, so Lotus Cobra. This card, funny story, when I was telling you guys earlier about my version of Bloom that I ran a couple years ago, I actually ran a Lotus Cobra in this, and guys, I can't even tell you how much of a house this card is. If you find this card to be working, totes bump it up, because what I really like about this card is it's got landfall, so it's whenever a land ATTB. So say, like, best case scenario, you have Lotus Cobra on board, right? So say you're at like 2 lands, you've cast your Lotus Cobra. And you play a land that's untapped, so you get that land, but then say you Lotus Cobra, so then you get to add an additional to your pool. So then it's like you have 2 lands, so then you're like, okay, cool, do whatever with your 2 mana. So it gets really out of hand in this deck. Definitely keep track of Lotus Cobra mana with your dice, I will say, because if you're playing like multiple lands in a turn, like think about it, guys. If you play 2 lands in a turn, and that's not even including like the other lands you already have on the board, if you have 2 lands that you play in a turn, and then you do Lotus Cobra, that's 4 mana right there, plus the additional lands you have. Totally speeds up the game. 100% recommend this card. I think if I were realistically to build this deck and whatnot, I'd probably bump it up to like 2 Lotus Cobras. I just threw in 1 because I'm not too sure how it will play. Again, it's a very fragile card. He's Glass Cannon, but this card is a freaking house. If you like are building this deck or whatever, I would really look into this card. Okay, we've been talking about the feature card in this deck literally all video, and that is Primeval Titan. Really, I can't say enough amazing things about this card. He's incredible. He's 6 mana, 6/6 trample. He TVs or attacks. You may search your library for up to 2 land cards and you put them on the battlefield tapped. And then if you have Amulet out, they obviously do not come in tapped, which is great. So 80 TVs. So say you have 6 mana because you've done your combo of things. You're like, sweet, okay, I need to recover because I've just casted Primeval Titan, I need something. So you cast your Prime Time and you're like, sweet, I get 2 lands, you can get your other bounce lands and, or a land that you need. Say you're like, I really need life, grab me a Radiant Fountain, I really need creatures, grab me a Colony Garden, like, grab whatever it is that you need. And then if you have haste, it's especially better. Most of the time you grab Slayer Stronghold though, depending on the state of the board, so that you can give your Primeval Titan haste and you can get more lands after that. I could just go on and on. This card's great. I mean, it's just, again, the point of the deck, you pretty much are going to kill people with this the majority of the time. Card's incredible. Okay, guys, I mean, would it really be a green video if I didn't talk about Thragtusk? Like, let's be real here. I can't get enough of this card, and I had to just throw him in here because this card really just can change totally the state of the board. It's a 5 mana, 5/3 DTBs, you gain 5 life. Like, guys, think about it in this sense. You're spending so much of the early stages of the game getting to 6 mana so you can cast Primeval Titan. So you do that, and then you're like, okay, well, I really need life because you're taking points of damage if you're playing against a super aggressive deck. Thragtusk is really good for that. And then you get a 3/3, so you get a blocker when it leaves the battlefield. Card's incredible. I love this card. Just run this card. Always, always, always. That's it for creatures. Instance. 1 Pact of Negation I mentioned earlier, really important card. This with Hive Mind or even Summoner's Pact can just totally end the game. I'm not mainboarding Hive Mind because there's just no room, damn it. And I wanted room so bad because I was like, I really want to just squeeze in a Hive Mind, but you just can't. It's so tough in the main board, and it also doesn't help every game. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't win every game, but it's definitely there in the sideboard. So I definitely recommend that in sideboard. Like, sideboard you can do whatever with, and I say this all the time, but I really would recommend that card. But anyways, Pact of Negation is super good. You can totally kill people with this with Hive Mind, or just blow people out. Like, say they're gonna kill your thing, and you're like, I can't let you do that, I really need my thing. Counter it. Really good. Okay, and then we have Summoner's Pact, which card's super important. Make sure you pay your Pact triggers. Really, really important. Put a dice on top of your deck or whatever, because losing by that is like the worst thing ever. Don't let that be you. Okay? So it's 0 mana, instant. Search your library for your green creature card, you reveal it, put it into your hand, then you shuffle your library. And then beginning your upkeep, if you don't pay 4 green, you lose. This getting your okay, so what's really cool about Summoner's Pact is you can get any of the creatures on my creature list. So I'd be really careful about running non-green creatures with this, because sometimes you're honestly desperate and sometimes you just Summoner's Pact Azusa. Guys, it happens. Sometimes everyone's like, oh, you just Summoner's Pact Primetime. Like, sometimes it just doesn't happen, especially with the change of Summer Bloom not being here anymore, you know, and you're so tight on mana, like every mana freaking counts. Used to play and sometimes you just have extra mana. You're like, I don't even know what to do with this. Now it's like everything matters. Most of the time you're going to be getting Primeval Titan, but sometimes you're just not. Sometimes you do play Azusa, you know, because you just really need to. So, card is extraordinarily important in this deck. Sorceries, let's talk. 10. 4 Ancient Stirrings. This is one of the most important cards in the deck. It's a little mini search your library. I'm sorry, look at the top 5. So it's, you know, a very mild, I don't even want to call it a tutor. I don't even know what to call it, but it's really, really important in this deck. You look at the top 5, you reveal a colorless from among them. Now, here's the deal with that, is you can get a land, you can get Amulet of Vigor, you can get Lotus Bloom, and you put the rest of your bottom of your library in any order. Looking at the top 5 is such a big deal. You know, this is a card that you want in early stages of the game so that you can, you know, get your Amulet if you need to, get your bounce land if you already have an Amulet, you know, whatever the situation is. Crazy important. You need this card in your version. Whatever you decide to do with this version, whatever, you need this card though. Okay, 4 of Explore. Now, funny story, I actually ran Explore in my version, and no, guys, is it as good as Bloom? No, no one is saying anything is as good as Bloom. It's just, they're not. But Explore is actually a decent substitute. Yes, you may only play an additional land this turn, however you get to draw a card. And that little bit of edge sometimes can just kind of put you over the edge, I would say, and really help you out a lot. I do like this card. I would definitely recommend it. I think, again, you can substitute it for whatever mana acceleration, whatever you want, but I really like Explore. I liked it in my other version, and I ran this, you know, in addition, obviously, to Bloom, and it was really helpful. I think I only ran like 2, but I'm running 4 here, but very good. And a 2 of Visions, and guys, I really want to run Opt because you know me, I love Opt, and I've been really impressed with that, but I think Visions almost works better, and here's why, for 2 reasons. The first reason is it's a sorcery. And I know that sounds kind of weird, but like, guys, you're not hiding anything from your opponent. You're not over there like, oh, well, I want to cast spells during my opponent's turn. Guys, if you cast a Serum Visions during your turn, like, it's okay. You know what I mean? It's not really a big deal, so I think that this card is, what's nicer about it is it's draw and scry. I do like Opt in more control decks where, you know, say you have a counter spell in your hand and then you have an Opt, and then they don't play anything notable that you want to counter, you're like, cool, end of turn Opt. But like here, who cares if you Serum Visions on your turn? Because all the things that you're doing are, you're going to cast them on your turn. You know, it's not like the end of their turn, you're going to cast Summoner's Pact. Like, no, you're not going to do that. So like, what does it matter if you're all tapped out on your turn? Does that make sense? So Serum Visions is good, and I do like the advantage that you get to scry too. I know it may not sound like a big deal, like the difference between Opt, which is scry 1, but this scry 2. What I really think is important about this though is that the cards you draw are so important that like the difference of drawing an Amulet or one specific land can just change the tide of the game. I think that having that additional scry is super important, and that's the reason I would pick Opt over it, and I can't believe I'm arguing against that card because I love it, but I just think in this deck I don't think it fits, and that's just my personal thing. Okay, last section is artifacts. So we've been talking about it all game, Amulet of Vigor. It's the house in this deck. It's, you know, it's the game changer card pretty much. It's 1 mana, an artifact. When a permanent ETB is tapped, you untap it. So kind of basically what you do is you have that bounce land, which normally says untap, it comes in tapped. Amulet of Vigor says that it comes in untapped, which is really incredible. So you automatically have, if you play bounce land, you automatically have that 2 mana at your disposal to cast whatever it is that you need to. No questions, you need this card. That's all I'm going to say. Okay, Lotus Bloom. Now guys, I looked at several deck lists and I really contemplated on what I was going to do in this slot. These 4 cards, I was like, what am I going to do? The rest of the stuff I could kind of negotiate, you know. Some of the creatures I was a little, you know, even running visions, I was like, I don't know. But honestly, I really like the synergies in this deck with Lotus Bloom. It's slow. I'm just going to throw that out there. This deck is in general slower. And this card especially is slow, but I like how you don't have to pay mana for it. So you can pay mana for other things that ramp, and then once you get this, you just have 3 mana at your pool. And I just want to say too, it's of any one color to your pool. I just want to like make note of that. Most likely it's going to be green, but I'm just saying, just note that. Again, yes, you do have to wait 3 turns, but what I think is really sweet with this is you could realistically, like, one of the best cases, I guess, that you could honestly have is like turn 1, Ancient Stirrings, and then you could get Lotus Bloom or from that, or you get an amulet from that, and then you Lotus Bloom on the first turn, and you don't have to pay any amount of mana for it, which is really good. So I think that's why this works really well with Ancient Stirrings, is you can always do this, you know, when you cast Ancient Stirrings, typically in early stages of the game, you know, yeah, sometimes you do cast Ancient Stirrings later, but it's so much better in the early stages when you're trying to get all your combo pieces. Sorry, I totally lost my train of thought right there, but card is really good, and the synergies I wanted to talk to you guys about it is it works well with Ancient Stirrings, which is one reason why I do really like it, and Teleria West, which I think is super important because it's 0 mana cost, so you can get this card, which I think is really fantastic, and that's the reason, one reason why I bumped it to 3 Teleria Wests instead of 2, because Lotus Bloom. Now, is this, in my belief, the right answer to making Bloom better? I don't know, to be completely honest. I really don't know. Maybe there's something that is better. I'm not really too sure. This is just my version, and I was thinking about it in terms of, like, how this would realistically work. You know what I mean? Like, how everything would work, but I like those interactions that it has with Teleria West, along with, what was the other card? Ancient Stirrings, and I think that's why I really like this card. And also keep in mind too that my version runs a little bit more card advantage because you're running Explore, that draws an additional card, so you have more opportunities to draw this card, and Seer Visions. You're getting the opportunity to draw and then scry and potentially put this on top if it's something you really need. I don't know if it's the right answer, I don't know if it's the right call, I'm really not too sure, but I do like it and I like the synergies that it provides. That is it, guys. I'm not going to talk about sideboard. I know I mentioned Hive Mind a little bit, and sideboard is so... It depends on, I've said this a million freaking times, it depends on if you're going to a big tournament, and there's so much you can throw in the sideboard, and it's tough. This is a tough deck to play, it's a tough deck to sideboard, and just in general, it's because it's like if you take out, like, you can't take out the combo pieces, you can't really take out, like, the lands, like, what do you even take out in this deck? You know, it's super hard, to do. It really is. And then you don't really want to go, because like sometimes I've sideboarded and I've gone up to 61 cards. It's happened where I'm like, these cards are all good in this matchup, you know, what do I do? Sometimes I do go 61. It happens. This is not a deck I would recommend doing that with at all, because every piece is so important. I don't think you could get away with it, to be honest. That is it, guys. Please let me know if you've made it this far. You're awesome. But please let me know if you want me to do that video on like substitutes in this deck, because I definitely will do it. There's some lands that I didn't mention that I think are pretty decent options. There's a bunch of creatures, you know, sorceries, artifacts, instants, literally anything definitely that are viable substitutes that potentially could work a little bit better. So that is it for this deck tag. Let me know if you guys like this, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.